Welcome to Spill the Trauma, Keep the Drama. I'm your host, Kayla. I do want to remind you guys that I am not a licensed professional. If you are seeking mental health help, you should definitely reach out to a professional. If you need help finding resources, you can always hit me up in my DMs and I'll be glad to help you find someone. My handle on Insta is Spill the Trauma, Keep the Drama. And now let's spill some trauma. My grandparents on both sides did pretty well for themselves. Coming from India, both my grandmas were registered nurses. My mom's father was in real estate. He was a real estate broker and he had his own business. And then my dad's father worked in life insurance for New York Life. So they came from India from nothing and they did a pretty good job of making a life for them here. They worked so hard to give everything they could to my parents and their siblings. My parents were raised upper middle class. My dad went to private and boarding schools, and my mom always had designer everything. Her parents even bought her multiple cars. They were essentially two snobby rich Indian kids who were spoiled by their parents. For the first 5 years of my life, they raised me the same way. But even though my grandparents gave them everything and more, they still tried to instill the importance of saving money. My parents, however, brushed it off, thinking, why save? We can always make more money. Dumbasses. They never really had to face reality because their parents always provided a safety net. When we did live on our own, we were always broke. My parents were never financially independent, never financially responsible, and my grandparents did a lot for them even when they were quote-unquote on their own. My grandparents bought their first house and helped them with the payment for that. When they wanted to open a business, my grandparents helped them buy that store. They helped them with rent. My grandma was always on speed dial and she would always send them money for diapers, food, whatever we needed. My grandma always helped financially. I remember in middle school, we'd get calls every day from the car company saying we were late on the car note. They were never financially responsible, yet they kept having kids. What confused me the most growing up was the stark contrast between my birth giver and her mother. My grandma was the type of person who, even if she had nothing, would still find a way to give me money or buy me something I needed. She was so selfless and generous, always putting others first, always taking care of us, always doing everything she could for us. My birth giver, on the other hand, was so greedy. She would hoard her money, spend it on herself, and make me feel guilty for asking for even the smallest things. It was hard to understand how someone who grew up with such a loving and giving mother could turn out so differently. While my father didn't repeat the cycle with me, my birth giver took financial abuse to a whole new level. She used money to manipulate me, just like her father had done to her and my dad to pressure them into getting married. Once I became a teenager, she'd constantly tell me money was tight and that I could only go shopping once a year. Sure, money could have been tight, but she was also driving around in a BMW, going on trips to Las Vegas, and renting a limo for her high school reunion. Money was only ever tight when I asked for something. The financial neglect always seemed to hit me harder than my brothers. She would buy them designer clothes and spend thousands on them without even blinking. But if I spent $100 shopping with her, she'd say I didn't know the value of money. This had a huge impact on my self-worth and self-love. I would constantly think, why don't I get to have nice things? Why don't I get the same love? When she moved into a mansion with her sugar daddy, she initially promised us all our own rooms. Do you know how exciting that is when you're growing up in low-income apartments and you go from hearing about getting evicted and living with cockroaches to the possibility of living in a mansion with a pool and a hot tub and a sauna and all the things you couldn't even dream of as a kid? It felt like a miracle. But then she conveniently changed her mind about me moving in and she turned the room that was supposed to be mine into a closet for her shoes. There's still a bed in there, but it's buried under piles of designer shoes now. Meanwhile, my dad, who's been in and out of homeless shelters for the past couple of years, is still being harassed by child support. She can fully support my brothers out of the mansion that they live in, yet she continues to exploit the system and my father, who has multiple sclerosis and is struggling with his own health and his own problems, and he has nothing left to give. When I lived in Florida, I had a steady job, and for the first time in my life, I was able to save money. It felt like a small victory, proof that I can take care of myself. But when I was 22 and sick of all the bullshit, I moved into an apartment on my own. For the first time, I felt a sense of independence. Sure, I was scared, but I was also so proud of myself. The only real problem I had was dealing with roaches. Again, I don't know if you guys know, but Florida roaches are nasty. They have like wings and they fly. But besides the roaches, I was managing. Every day though, my birth giver would call me, telling me I was going to fail, that I was going to die alone, and that I couldn't make it on my own. She scared me into coming back to New York. I left my job. I spent everything on rent and didn't have enough money to move all my things back. She offered to help me move my stuff back, but when it came time to pay a fine to the post office for my belongings, she refused. Mind you, it's not like money was tight. She was living with her sugar daddy. She could have easily afforded it. And I'm not trying to sound entitled. That was her argument at the time, but she literally offered to help me. Don't just offer someone help when it's convenient for you, or to like lie to them and trick them and manipulate them, and then when you actually have to help, like refuse. That's like so fucked up. So another form of financial manipulation that she did to me was she would always tell me to go work at her office and help her with like different tasks, whether it be like make flyers, and I would spend hours like helping her with whatever. And then I would ask her for the payment that she like had promised, and she would be like, "Oh, well, I feed you and I shelter you, so I don't really have to pay you because me feeding and sheltering you is enough." You know, like the bare minimum for a parent. But why would you like promise someone you're gonna pay them for doing something and then like, I don't know, that's just shady. I mean, that's not even shady, that's just like lying at that point. Another form of financial abuse that I'm dealing with right now is where I'm living. The boiler has been broken like all winter, and they keep quote unquote fixing it, but instead of like actually fixing it and getting a new boiler. Just for context, this boiler is like older than me. It's pretty old for like a household thing. So like I feel like the logical thing to do would be to like replace it, especially if it keeps going out every fucking 2 days. But instead of doing that, and like the person I live with like claims they have like millions, but won't spend like pennies on to like get the thing fixed. But like it's not like I can say anything because they like are sheltering me. So living with very stingy people has given me kind of a different perspective on money and wealth. And don't get me wrong, I know the importance of financial stability. I definitely understand the importance of financial stability. And I know the importance of having money and what it feels like when you don't have it. And I'm very grateful when I do have money and do have income. But money isn't everything, is what I've like taken away from the lessons I've learned. It's not what should drive you. You should aspire to more than just having money, and, or well, at least in my opinion, you should like aspire to having community around you and people who like love and care about you, because at the end of the day, if you just aspire to have money, that's all you're gonna have. You're not gonna have people who love you and people who care about you. And when I was in contact with my birth giver, that's all we had. She like isolated us from all of my family, all of the people that now I get to see, and I like get to feel their love and compassion and kindness, and I get to feel that sense of community. We didn't have that because she isolated us from everyone, and she's still isolating my brothers and herself from everyone, and they don't get to have that kind of community and love and just that sense of like family. And it's just really sad to like go your life without having that, and like having like I remember feeling that absence and missing my cousins and missing family events, and it sucked. And now that I get to see all of them and get to hang out with all of them again, like I'm so grateful. And I feel like that's so much more valuable to me, to be able to hang out with them. Not saying that like money wouldn't be helpful right now, but like that is like equally as valuable to me as like having abundance, you know? So it's just different things you get to like see and learn when you go through these kinds of experiences. Living with people who manipulate and control you can be incredibly difficult, especially when it comes to financial abuse. The long-term effects, like struggling with self-worth, feeling unworthy of nice things, or even doubting your ability to be independent, can linger long after you've left the situation. But here's the thing, just like with everything else, healing is possible. It starts with recognizing that what happened to you wasn't your fault. You weren't the problem, their behavior was. One of the most important steps is to rebuild your relationship with money. For me, that meant learning to save even if it was just a little at a time, and reminding myself that I do deserve financial stability. And it also meant setting boundaries, something that I'm still working on, and understanding that it's okay to say no to people who try to control or manipulate me. Therapy has been a huge help too. Talking to someone who understands the dynamics of financial abuse can help you unpack the trauma and rebuild your confidence. And if therapy isn't an option, finding a support group or even just talking to trusted friends can make the world of a difference. Finally, be patient with yourself. I'm gonna say this a lot, and I said this last week too. Healing is not linear. And I can say that from this week alone. This past week was very difficult for me. I was going through some things and I just was super emotional. The pressure of still not finding a job got to me. I just physically wasn't feeling well. I was beating myself up for needing rest and I was crashing out a little because I just felt so overwhelmed, and all the months of feeling like I've been doing so well and doing so good just felt like it went out the window. But then I talked to my therapist and I talked to her about how I was feeling and how I felt guilty for wanting rest and needing rest when I don't have a job. And she told me to think about it logically, and she reminded me that that's not really my voice, that's the voice of someone who abused me for years saying that, and it's the voice is still in my head. And she's logically, if you're not feeling well, you need to rest, and you have the time to rest right now, so go rest. And sometimes you just need to hear someone else say it. And then throughout the week after that, I was just doing small things to try to make myself feel better. I got myself ice cream and I just was doing small things to take care of myself, and it really helped. And that also shows growth, because a couple months ago, if I was feeling like shit, I wouldn't have been talking to my I would have been talking to my therapist about it, but I wouldn't have been doing these small things to take care of myself to make me feel better. So it just comes with time. But going back to this topic, some days, like I said, are going to be harder than others. But every small step you take, whether it's opening a savings account, setting a budget, or simply reminding yourself that you deserve better, is a victory. You're stronger than you think, and you don't have to let their actions define your future. You've already survived the hardest part. Now it's about reclaiming your power and building the life that you deserve. Thank you all for listening. I hope you guys are enjoying the episodes. New episodes drop every Tuesday. If you have any questions or want to discuss anything I've been talking about, feel free to hit me up. My DMs are open on Instagram at Spill the Trauma, Keep the Drama. I'm on Insta, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So yeah, feel free to hit me up if you want to talk about anything I've talked about. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week or day or whenever you're listening to this. Until next time, when we spill more trauma.